This is Dubai chocolate. You've probably seen it before. If you've been shopping recently, or even if you've just been scrolling your Instagram feed, this stuff, absolutely everywhere. They're selling Dubai chocolate at Walmart now, along with Target, Costco, Trader Joe's. Big European chocolate companies like Lindt and Godiva are producing their own branded versions. This stuff has become a viral craze online. There are videos of people trying the various chocolates and getting millions of views. So what is Dubai chocolate? Well, basically, it's a chocolate bar with ground up pistachios and kadayif, which is shredded phyllo pastry in the middle. It's brown and green. Now, it's not bad. It's a nice mix of sweet and savory, nice crunch in the middle, a bit like a Kit Kat or a Twix. But there's a major problem with all this, because the Dubai chocolate trend helps to cover up dictatorship, genocide, and some of the worst human rights abuses on Earth. Now, it wouldn't quite be accurate to say the government of the United Arab Emirates, and of Dubai in particular, has been involved in pushing Dubai chocolate on the world market since day one. But they certainly jumped on board at day two. Product was created in 2021 by a confectioner named Sarah Hamouda, who took her inspiration from a pregnancy craving for chocolate combined with pistachio. And Hamouda's company did business in Dubai in relative obscurity until 2023, when an influencer named Maria Vahera, whose content revolves around trying different foods and restaurants in the United Arab Emirates, went viral with a TikTok video about the candy. Other influencers copied Vahera, as they do, and before long, Dubai chocolate was a full-blown fad. And that's where the sheikhs got involved. There's no pretty way to say it. The UAE is a dictatorship. It's even less democratic than Iran, its neighbor across the Persian Gulf. Because Iran at least has somewhat competitive elections from time to time. Reform-minded candidates like Masoud Pezeshkian can sometimes get into office. In the UAE, there's none of that. The Emirates themselves are 7 hereditary kingdoms ruled by sheikhs with absolute power. The president of the UAE is always chosen from among those 7 sheikhs. In fact, since the UAE was established in 1971, there have been only 3 presidents, all of them the ruling sheikh of Abu Dhabi, and all related to each other. Talk about Nepo babies. There are parliamentary elections, but not everyone can vote in them. In the 2019 election, only an appointed electorate of more than 330,000 got to cast a ballot. That's less than a quarter of the total population. It might shock you to learn that the sheikhs and their government bureaucracy control the appointing of who gets to vote. Even this highly limited form of democracy only applies to half of the 40-member parliament. The other 20 members are selected directly by the sheikhs. So in terms of democracy and in terms of authoritarianism, the UAE is in roughly the same category as North Korea. Promoting Dubai-themed products should just immediately raise our suspicions, just as much as if someone tried to sell us, Pyongyang taffy. The current Crown Prince of Dubai and the defense minister for the UAE as a whole is a man named Hamdan bin Mohammed Al Maktoum. He's the son of Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the billionaire ruler of Dubai, and his personal net worth is estimated at about $400 million. And he loves the Dubai chocolate trend. Can't get enough of it. So much so, in fact, that he collaborated with Sarah Hamouda's candy company, Fix, last September, and produced an exclusive Sheikh Hamdan-themed chocolate bar. Now, the propaganda aspect of this is not subtle. Hammoud and her chocolate company are selling the Emirati monarchy to a global audience through their chocolate, just as much as the monarchy is helping her to sell that chocolate. In the posts, she seems awestruck to be dealing with Sheikh Hamdan himself, who comes across as a sort of benevolent Willy Wonka figure of the Middle East. Meanwhile, the Emirati government has been buying media coverage for Dubai chocolate at major English-speaking news outlets. At CNN Travel, we can find a long puff piece about Sarah Hammoud and her chocolate company. It's titled, "Meet the Woman Behind Dubai's Viral Super Chunky Chocolate Bar." And it has a tagline. Editor's note, this CNN series is, or was, sponsored by the country it highlights. Now just think about what that means. CNN, the American news network, has allowed a Gulf dictatorship to just drop a sack of money at its door and choose what topics the news network will cover. Dubai chocolate got the nod. It's hard to imagine a more blatant form of propaganda. In fact, there's a name for this propaganda. It's called food washing. Now, you might be familiar with greenwashing, where companies and nations pretend to be more environmentally friendly than they really are, or with pinkwashing, where they leverage support for gay rights, real or pretended, to distract from other issues. But in the Middle East these days, there's also a lot of sports washing. Both Saudi Arabia and Qatar have spent vast amounts of money to attach themselves to popular sporting events like the World Cup or PGA golf and improve their image on the world stage, distract from all the atrocities. But food washing is becoming common too, and it's just as insidious. I mean, Israel and its supporters do plenty of this. They describe traditional Middle Eastern dishes like za'atar, which have been around for centuries, as Israeli cuisine in order to promote the nation. Or in a more benign case, part of the reason Thai food became so popular in the United States is that the Thai government funded an extensive program to establish at least 3,000 Thai restaurants worldwide in the early 2000s. So around the world, food isn't just food. It's also an important tool for what's called cultural soft power. Now, in the case of the UAE, this Dubai chocolate is just one aspect of a comprehensive media strategy. They want to promote Dubai as a luxurious destination for tourists rather than the biggest city in a horrible dictatorship. Among other strategies, the Emirates offers generous rebates to movie studios that want to film there, conditional on the filmmakers featuring the UAE in a positive light. Dubai itself is a dedicated film commission. You might remember a few years back, they got Tom Cruise to film himself climbing the Burj Khalifa, their huge skyscraper, for Mission Impossible. More recently, Dubai has been cultivating online influencers. They have a $40 million influencer academy, that's their term, where young people fly in to be trained on how to shoot viral videos. Also, they can support Dubai's unparalleled vision for the future of tourism. Now, again, just imagine if Pyongyang did this. In 2023, journalists found that several Instagram influencers who'd promoted visiting Dubai during the COP28 climate summit were paid to do so by Dubai. And because there's very little regulation on any of this, there are no real rules about online influencing as an industry, or very few. You can never be sure if the smiling faces telling you how delicious Dubai chocolate is are on the Emirati payroll. All of these different forms of propaganda work the same way, by promoting something nice, covering up something atrocious. Lockheed Martin wants you to think about its cheery rainbow banner in the Pride Parade, and not its killer drones and missiles. Saudi Arabia wants you to think about Bill Burr doing a comedy special, not Jamal Khashoggi being hacked to bits with a bone saw. And the sheikhs in Dubai, Hamdan and his father, want very much for you to think about this tasty-looking chocolate, not any of the skeletons in their closets. And there are plenty of skeletons. It's not just that the UAE is a dictatorship, although that's bad enough. It also has one of the worst human rights records of any nation on earth, up to and including complicity and genocide. There's slavery. According to the nonprofit Walk Free Foundation, the UAE has the 7th highest rate of modern-day slavery of any country. An estimated 132,000 people are living in conditions of functional enslavement there. And the majority of those are migrant workers. They come to the UAE looking for job opportunities, and they have their passports confiscated by their bosses, so they can't leave. They're forced to work long hours in extreme heat, other dangerous conditions, cramped, unsanitary housing, little or no pay. And that's basically how Dubai was built. That's how it's become full of all those glittering skyscrapers, slave labor. The Middle East and North Africa Rights Group also reports that arbitrary arrest, detention, and torture are widespread, despite the country being a signatory to the UN conventions against those practices since 2012. In one case, from 2022, a British journalist named Ali Ahmed reports that he was arrested just because he was wearing a Qatar football jersey. Then he was beaten, electrocuted, stabbed, and interrogated days and nights until he was released several days later, just as suddenly and just as arbitrarily. Of course, the situation for women in the UAE is fairly horrible. There have been some reforms. Women can now drive and vote in the sham elections, for what that's worth. But as the Human Rights Watch reports, the nation still has male guardianship laws, which restrict women's movement. So many state universities in the UAE require their female students to, quote, show they have male guardian permission before they can go on field trips. Needless to say, non-marital sex is illegal. If people who aren't married end up having a child, both parents can face 2 years in prison. Although, as the Human Rights Watch points out, it's mainly women who are prosecuted because only men can file complaints. So, you think about people like Sarah Hamoud, who's making this chocolate, or Maria Vieira, who's promoting it on TikTok. And, they might be relatively well treated in Dubai. But they should know better than to provide media cover for a government that still doesn't treat women as fully human. And that's for heterosexual people. The picture for gay rights and lesbian rights is even worse, as there really aren't any. Homosexuality between men is illegal in the UAE, with a minimum prison sentence of 6 months. There's also an array of more vague laws against any flagrant indecent act, which in practice means anything even vaguely non-hetero involving any gender. There are gay clubs and bars in Dubai. You can find, journalists who visited them, but they're secretive, as they used to be in the United States. A journalist called Dr. Ryan Sentner visited one a few years ago, and he describes a constant sense of your hair standing on end, having to be cautious about who's listening, who's at the door, what might be said and passed along that could get us in trouble. Now, the United Arab Emirates, of course, is also one of the key international players blocking any action on climate change. Like several other Gulf monarchies, it's a petrostate. The great bulk of its income comes from oil, and its leaders have actively sabotaged any opportunity for climate reform in the past. Most recently, when the United Nations made the colossally stupid decision to hold their climate summit in Dubai in 2023, the government immediately appointed Sultan Ahmed Al Jaber, who runs the country's state-run oil company, as conference president. It's kind of like having your animal rights conference at McDonald's. From documents leaked to the BBC, we know that Emirati officials used the climate summit as an opportunity to have closed-door meetings with their counterparts from 20 countries, including the UK, France, Germany, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Kenya, all with the goal of making fossil fuel deals, worsening the very climate problem they were supposed to be solving. And then, of course, there's the genocide. It's a sign of how bleak things are today that when we talk about a genocide in the Middle East, we have to specify which one. But today it's the Emirates we're talking about, and not Israel in Gaza or Saudi Arabia in Yemen. Earlier this year, the government of Sudan brought genocide charges against the UAE to the International Court of Justice. And they were eventually dismissed on a technicality about jurisdiction. But Sudan has a strong case. Although the UAE officially denies it, there's evidence that it supplies weapons to the Rapid Support Forces paramilitary, the RSF. That's one of the two sides in Sudan's lethal civil war. This has been documented extensively in places like Foreign Affairs, Amnesty International, but the RSF has been using the weapons that the UAE sells it to carry out horrifying massacres against non-Muslim ethnic groups in Sudan, especially the Masalit people in Darfur, seemingly with the goal of wiping them out entirely. Just as it is with Israel and Saudi Arabia, the United States is deeply tied up in all this. Last year, the Biden administration declared the UAE a major defense partner and agreed to sell its leaders and Saudi Arabia's up to $2.2 billion worth of U.S. weapons, some of which may very well have ended up in the RSF's hands and been used to carry out those massacres. Not for the first time, they have blood on their hands. But so does anyone helping to polish the UAE's image with a cheery, green-tinted chocolate bar. Now, all of this brings us to another trend that's popular on social media today, calling things propaganda I'm not falling for. Usually this is pretty tongue-in-cheek. People like to call random things like whole milk or Benson Boone music propaganda. The joke is that it's just their personal dislikes. But Dubai chocolate really is propaganda, and you really shouldn't fall for it. The candy bars are being pushed onto store shelves, onto your TikTok feed, by the hereditary rulers of a kingdom that enslaves thousands of people, tortures prisoners, systematically denies rights to women and LGBTQ people, peddles world-killing fossil fuels, and bankrolls the bombs and bullets that rain devastation on Sudan right now. So there's no reason anybody should want anything to do with Dubai chocolate or anything that carries the word Dubai. The candy might taste nice, but knowing that you're helping drum up positive PR for a murderous dictatorship is better.
Thanks for watching. This video is a product of Current Affairs magazine, the country's leading independent left print magazine based here in New Orleans, Louisiana. Go to currentaffairs.org to find out more about us, and currentaffairs.org/subscribe to subscribe to our absolutely gorgeous bi-monthly print edition. Get it in your mailbox. You can also subscribe to the Current Affairs News Briefing, the Current Affairs podcast, or you can subscribe to our digital edition. Current Affairs is entirely reader-supported. We have no ads. We have no corporate backers. We depend on you. So please consider purchasing a subscription or making a donation to Current Affairs today. We are a 501c3 non-profit organization, and your donations are tax-deductible to the extent allowable by law. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.